So we talked a lot about the, I answered typing in what you were saying to me about the master, the bus, and the sort of the different things, and maybe we could sort of combine this together with the summing questions. So some people were asking questions knowing that you had relied on the fulcrum.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I've gone through the whole summing thing and gone through the whole, you know, it was interesting during the summing thing by using different mic pre's on the output stage, because I really liked the sound again of the old Kodak ones, and you could change the color a little bit. But the last few mixes I've done have been in HDX, and I have a couple of different summing systems.
Right.
And just for fun, just to see if I'm not fooling myself or what's really there, I would do the mix through the summing system, and then ask John, my assistant, to take it away, get the levels, so there's no
Difference in level.
And
right.
we'd flop the phase just to see what was different in the mix. We'd do a dry mix, so obviously there's no reverb tails that are going to be different anyway, so I'd just do a dry mix and just see what was there, and just with the amount of headroom there is now, and just the way that Pro Tools has moved, I don't really need to be summing anymore. I thought I was still going to be, but I surprised myself.
So that was, and you have the Blackline 192s.
Yeah, I have them as my converters, which I love.
Right, and you would route that into what was the newer summing box that you have?
I've got a Dave Hill summing box, which is phenomenal.
Right. But now with HDX in the box, you're not only are you relying on less inserts on your master bus analog-wise, but you're also feeling less needs to sum, right?
Just I proved to myself a couple of days ago, because I was doing a mix that was a huge, big mix, and I was thinking, you know, summing is the way to go, because I've always done that, and there was a point when it did help, no question, but we just did the A/B test just to see. We had time to do it, and I wanted to find out for myself, and
I think that's some really good advice that, you know, even when we were doing back and forth the HD6 to HDX, you need to hear it, and you want to hear what the phase cancel is to really make sure you're not fooling yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's an important level of testing to make sure that...
To me, these days, it is, because there's so many X factors and so many opinions. You've really just got to, make sure you do your own control test, and it's such a personal thing. You know, some people will still some thought it was not necessary in the first place because it was all to do with analog smear. I mean, there's so many. Everyone's got an opinion.
Sure.
Right now, I'm liking not needing to have to go through the whole summing process.
Right.
Yeah.
I get you back. Okay, so let's take another question here. How deeply do you get involved in using the icon as the surface? So the question is, for instance, custom faders or the dedicated EQ dynamic section. I know you use it a lot for faders, but what about some of the deeper integration?
I like to use the automation. I mean, it's very easy to sit there with a mouse and get very detailed with, and there is a total need for that when you're getting into certain things, but I'm a little bit more old school and used to the SSL way of having my finger on the fader.
Right.
I always know I can go back and redraw something or make it be a perfect, but I like having my finger on the faders and popping into I like to use the icon as the automation in the same way as an analog board. I like to be able to grab faders, punch them into absolute, go into trim.
Well, I saw you use the EQ section a lot as well here.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. I mean, all the time. I mean, I try. You get into mousing sometimes when you're detailed, and I go, hang on a minute, it's so much better just to grab the knob and shut my eyes and feel it.
Right.
You know, it's a different way of approaching it, but yeah, I'm always adjusting the compression and the EQ from the center section for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. That was a great
question. It's a lot more intuitive for me.
So I think we answered the hardware inserts question. That one's done. So this came up earlier from Dean. You prefer 88.2 as your sampling rate if you could work at...
Yeah, I do.
You know, if you could tell someone who's sending you tracks, you know, you'd want to do it at 88.2.
I prefer 88.2. The plugins sound great at 88.2. Obviously, the higher sampling rate you can go, the plugs are going to sound better.
Right.
And 88.2 is just something we seem to have settled on. I mean, because I couldn't previously. I mean, again, always with the HDX system, a lot of people would stay at 48 to allow for the track count and the ability to use plugins. I just prefer the openness and the depth of 88.2, and
Right.
now I can get on with work because I can fill it up, with plugins and so forth. So
Right. Here's a good one. Do you print your mix to a stereo audio track, or do you use the bounce to disk command?
but we bust it through.
So you reprint internal busing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Any preference on the type of clock that you're using now?
Yeah, it's all such a subjective thing,
Yeah.
and you just got to find something that you like. But it just happens that, to me, the clock in the black line converter is a superior clock, and the converter is a superior converter.
Right.
And it's all a matter of taste. Everyone's got their own opinion about what they like and what works and what doesn't.
Sure.
And for me and the way I work, and for the people I work with, the clock is a huge part of what the sound is with digital to me, and how the stability of the clock, and that's the one for me.
Okay, great. So, this last one here. When working with Mutt, are you now using the HDX and the Icon system? So you are now starting a new project.
Yeah, we're just starting a new project, and yes, the only way I could, it's a massive track count, and to be able to do what we need to do, I can only do it in HDX.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually we're running two HDX cards. And it's working out great, but I couldn't mix it. I wouldn't be able to mix it.
Right.
Especially at 88.2. At the sampling rate I wanted, you'd have to all be down to 44.1 or something. I don't know how I'd even do it, but...
Yeah. Here's an interesting question. From your personal point of view, the biggest advantage to digital mixing compared to analog processing, and which steps do you still achieve by using analog equipment, as you said in the interview? So, I mean, for you and the amount of clients and the things that you have to do your job, this is the workflow that benefits that, correct?
Yeah, and it's also become the workflow that I prefer. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, there is that thing about the instant recall and how people can rely on... We have to mix in the box because we have to do recalls, and there's a whole kind of mindset like that. But I mix in the box because these days there's enough tools to make it sound exactly how it's not a compromise.
Right.
I'm not doing it because my client says I need to do a recall, do it the easiest way possible. I do it because I have so many options now.
Right.
That I can. I'm not stuck with anything.
You're constantly trying new plugins, and you pretty much
All
have
the
every
time.
plugin on the planet Earth.
Yeah, but there's always something great coming out.
Yeah.
Something different where they approach EQ, like the Surf EQ, or something which is there's all kinds of new. And you hear about it, or you're constantly reading about it.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it's kind of you stumble across amazing plugins.
And then with guys like Bobby from URS and Steven from Slate, you spend time with these guys and say, hey, could we do something like this, or could we go this direction?
Yeah.
And then it even comes in closer to what you're looking for.
Yeah, which is great, because it's just got to a point where it's really great.
Cool. Well, let's pop up the slide now, too, that Gil has up. So this is the slide that shows on the left Mike's HD6 system. And as he said, he wasn't maxed out at the end. He was maxed out really at the beginning.
Yeah, I had to think, okay, now how am I going to approach this? Because I know I'm going to get stuck.
Right.
And I don't want to spend hours watching the shuffle.
Right. And then on the right, we opened it on an HD native and an HDX system. So you can see the different usages. The HD native system was able to play it. About 73%, is that right, Gil? The CPU usage?
73% CPU on a desktop Nehalem 2009 Mac Pro. It played all the way through. No errors. And then obviously on the far right with the HDX1 system, had no problems at all playing on the MacBook Pro with the Thunderbolt chassis.
Right. Some of these plugins, Gil, that we did opened up as RTAS native, right? If they didn't have a TDM version.
That's correct. On the HDX system, not everything is made that AAX transition to the DSP world of the new card. So there were quite a few plugins that he used that were opened up natively, and by the combination of using all of the mixer being built on the card with, you know, quite a bit of some of the, like the revibes are done on the card and things like that, and then combining that with a lot of host-based processing. I mean, you can see that. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot. I mean, it had room to, you know, really stretch out and do a lot more.
Yeah.
We had using half a card, plus we still had more than 2/3 CPU left on a MacBook Pro, and you know, you add this to a desktop system with some of the newer ones with the 12 cores. I mean, we had even more power. So,
So on the setting inside of Pro Tools for your pan depth, so like the older British consoles that I believe it's minus 4.5 in the center.
4.5.
Yeah. So is that where you like to be?
Yeah. Just used to that feel. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That's a good question. And on this new record with Mutt, they were working on 2 separate Pro Tool systems to get the track count. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it turned up. You know, it turned up from Mutt's studio, and it had to be broken up into 2 sessions.
Right.
You know, for them to be able to run it even in, you know, at Mutt's place.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And he works. That's his tool, so that when you guys are sharing stuff, he's using Pro Tools. It's real easy to.
Yeah, we have the same converters. We have our own same monitors. There's like we have a monitoring system that we had built, which he and I have
Right.
the same set. And
Why do you say percentage-wise you spend at higher volumes or
lower volumes?
most of the day is lower?
Yeah. I mean, I'll have to crank it at some point to make sure that if there's any, you know, harsh frequencies in the vocal or anything that's yeah, it'll be up and down, but most it'll be down on dim, so I can really hear what I'm doing.
Right.
You can really feel yourself mixing it. You don't get the bottom end right. You know, you're fatigued. You don't get the depth of field right.
Right.
I mean, it's really I like to monitor quite low.
And that's really good for checking your vocal level balances, right? At that lower level to see where it's sitting properly.
If you tune into listening low, you can hear the inconsistencies really much more apparently than you can loud.
Yeah.
But then again, there's nothing better than a good crank if it sounds good. You know?
Right.
But then again, if you're not listening at that level all day, you can hear what needs to be pulled out, you know,
Right.
or added to a.
So there was a question earlier about the sort of the plugins or advice you could give people about sort of lead vocals and the sound. Now I know we were relying on the McDSP, the newer vintage models. What were you kind of leaning towards on our mix?
It's different for every singer in every way that someone's recorded the vocals.
Gotcha.
Quite often, my personal choice is to go in and EQ harsh-sounding frequencies in certain places. If the track doesn't sit right, I'll go straight for ducking out, you know, harsh frequencies, and I get
Sure.
the compression. I don't really. It's different every time.
Gotcha.
I mean, some vocals you'll get in digital sessions, and they'll sound very pinched because they've been highly processed.
Right.
You know, whether they've been highly tuned or whatever. And I just still like to get the fatness. So I'll use whatever I can harmonic. EQ doesn't always work because of, you know, as an overall thing, but there are boxes you can use, you know, like the Phoenix plugin and those kind of things. There are different plugins now where you can do an overall
Right.
shift and bring it into a less harsh area. Or
So in other words, in the same mix, you may end up using Heat. You may end up using the Crane Song Phoenix plugins. You may mix and match your analog.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's take one more question. A lot of people saying thanks, Mike. So they really do appreciate
Great.
appreciate your time and joining us, and we definitely do. How does curious how the UAD system has been working in conjunction with Pro Tools? That's working great for you. You rely heavily on the UAD plugins, right?
Yeah, there's some UAD plugins which I never thought. There's some console emulations. The Harrison one. There's ones, you know, that there's the Neve 88R. I mean, there's all kinds of emulations that they've got, and I can't put my hand on a piece, you know, and say this is an exact replication, but they sound great. That's all that I know.
Right.
So I like to use them. There's an incredible variation.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's where we'll leave it off now. So, guys, we really appreciate you joining us. Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.